Welcome to the Triumphant Birth Podcast. I'm Jamie Reichschlager, and today we will be hearing a birth story from Brittany Ebben. Brittany Ebben is a doula client of mine who I have had the privilege of attending for 2 of her births and also being on her birth team for her first baby. She has become a truly, truly great friend. And as I was thinking about how to round out the year on this podcast, I really wanted to find a story that was a feel-good story and somewhat festive. And I think this story is just the right fit for that. So the release of this podcast is a little different than the normal Tuesday schedule. And as I take lessons and feedback from this podcasting experience, so far, which has been awesome, by the way, I'm going to take the next few weeks as an opportunity to regroup and come back in January with some improvements and changes that will hopefully make your experience as listeners that much better. On that note, if you have any specific constructive feedback on what you've heard on the Triumphant Birth podcast so far, I would love to hear it either in the form of a review or feel free to reach out on Instagram at triumphant_birth. I've really been loving this podcast as a creative outlet, as a learning opportunity. And you guys, I am so excited for the guests that we have lined up for 2025, which is crazy to think about. So thank you for being here and thank you for being you. Now let's get into the birth story with Brittany. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Today I have Brittany, and Brittany is an amazing human being. I'll do a separate introduction, but today Brittany is going to be sharing her birth story. So just to give a little bit of background, I know Brittany as a client first. We met as a doula client. It was a doula client relationship, and then we became friends like shortly after that. And the reason I wanted to talk to Brittany today is because I'm not sure when this will come out. It's somewhere around the holidays, but yesterday was your youngest Beau's first birthday. And so I was reflecting on Beau's birthday and the fact that I got to be there for it. And honestly, I was reflecting on the fact that that birth gave me so much and it supported me in my pregnancy because I was there with you, supporting you, pregnant with twins, but I didn't know it at the time that it was twins. I would find out 3 days later. So there's just a lot about Beau's birth that was supportive for me. But today I wanted to focus on you and how you got to that place of having Beau the way you did and all of that. So we can just jump right into it. Now you have 3 kids. You are a mom of 3. You live here in Wisconsin, pretty close, relatively close to where I do. And we birthed at the same birth center.
Yes.
So would you take us through any other background, anything else that you think is important to share about you and your family? And then we can get into the birth of your first 2 children briefly.
Yeah. So just thinking back, gosh, to the first, to Marley, who's 4.5 now. It's crazy. She was our little COVID baby, which kind of started all of our, this whole thing, I'd say, because I was like 34-ish weeks pregnant when COVID hit and the world was kind of like uncertain, and I was like more nervous about like not having support or possibly my husband in the room when our baby was born, which started me being like, that's not even an option. So that's when I started looking into like home births and the birth center, just viewing our options. And that's also when the original doula I had decided she wasn't going to do in-person support. So that also triggered me looking for more doulas, and that's how I came across you and Cynthia, and Alba Birth Center. So just thinking back, like, if I don't even know where we'd be if the world didn't shut down at this time, but it just triggered a whole series of what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And it's honestly been the best thing that came out of COVID, I would say, because we continued on to have 2 more babies at the birth center, and Cynthia and Jamie, you were doulas for all of them. So that was where this all started, I'd say. Trying to think of what other information might help us lead into this, but I'm just thinking as well, one of the things that comes to mind is that when I was looking for doulas, I interviewed, I think it was you and someone else, and I just remember being like, yep, 100%, like, Jamie's my girl, like, we're taking her. And then part of me was like, oh, I don't know if I click as well with the other doula. And I felt bad. I told my husband, I'm like, do I just say yes because I'm happy with Jamie and call it a day? And then he's like, we're paying for this. You want this. Make sure you like them. And that's how we got Cynthia on our team. So just to really speak up, that was the beginning of, like, just really advocating for myself and what I really wanted for my births and our family. And here we are now, and I just am really happy with how things turned out from there. Anything you'd like to add about the start of it?
Just for a little bit of context. So this went during COVID. What you're talking about and navigating the doula selection was through a doula agency. So I interviewed through the doula agency. How it works is that parents will fill out the contact form for it's Green Bay doulas for anyone wondering, and then we work in teams of 2. So parents get to interview the teams that are selected for availability and goals and other things. And of course, there's a doula, hopefully for everyone. And if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And that doula was probably a good fit for someone else who had maybe slightly different goals. So I think it's a good takeaway for anyone who's pregnant and looking for a doula. Or it, it applies to anyone. It applies to practitioners of, like, make sure you click with them, because birth
Yes.
is a powerful and also very vulnerable state. And so you want to make sure that you're comfortable with this person, not only speaking to them and, like, being able to exhale fully in their presence, but also, maybe pooping in front of them, maybe throwing up in front of them, and because this is a really important point in your life. And so I do applaud you for making the selections that you did and just trusting your gut on who felt right for you. And as a doula, as a practitioner, as a nurse, like anyone else who works with pregnant women and families, it's like, it shouldn't be a personal thing, like, I've had clients where it's like, yeah, it's great. It's a professional relationship. And then you have those clients where it's like, no, we truly click,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a friendship, because it's really hard to separate when the support is it's mutual. I mean, the support has become mutual, and that's what community is. So I just want to throw it out there that if you're not comfortable with your practitioner or your doula or your chiropractor or whoever it is, just make a change if that's available
Yes.
to you. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you weren't present at my first birth because I think it was your sister-in-law, someone that was having a baby around the same time. So you weren't on duty when I went into labor with Marley. So I had Cynthia. And then Addie was December of 2021. She was born, and That was at Alba, and you were my present doula at the time for that one. So yeah, I almost have almost two Christmas babies, really.
Yeah.
Bo's my third, and he was born at Alba a year ago yesterday. So December 16th. So gosh, his pregnancy was the most challenging for me. Just wasn't as comfortable. Maybe I always joke with my husband. I'm like, maybe it's because I was older than my other two. Maybe it's just because I literally was pregnant and breastfeeding for multiple years now in a row. And then now I had two toddlers to chase around. So the deck was probably stacked against me on this, where I was just like, oh, this is a hard pregnancy.
Remind me of Marley and Addie's weights.
Yes, Marley was 9'3",
Okay.
and Addie was 8. I think like 8'14", 8'15". I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
She was
So
like, we call her 9
spoiler alert.
pounds.
Yeah. So spoiler alert. Bo was bigger than both of them.
Bo,
That could have contributed to that too. So
that could have definitely contributed. Yeah, he took the cake there. I mean, we always joked in all my pregnancies that I just don't make small babies. Like, they're just not. We know that. And I also, in my first two pregnancies, I was like, oh, I probably will go over. I'll be overdue. No big deal. Like, and then this one, since it was harder, I was like, please come as early as you're ready. Like, come sooner than later. And he ended up coming the latest of all of our guest dates, you know.
well, you carried all the babies so beautifully and so well. And still, yeah, I know that there are subsequent pregnancies can be harder and sometimes they can be easier. So there's a lot of factors there. Other than the discomfort, was there anything else that, I mean, it's a big thing, but was there anything that was of concern for the midwives for you?
No, everything was, besides me just not feeling as good, you know, throughout pregnancy. I feel like everything else was, baby was good. My vitals were all, you know, like nothing. It was just how I was like feeling and like tired and uncomfortable and, you know, those things, which I can't complain really in the grand scheme of the things. They were good, all good pregnancies. So Bo was estimated to be due, I want to say December 10th, maybe somewhere in there. And I just remember it being Thanksgiving and being like, I would not be upset if we had a November baby. Because I would just like, I remember having so many more like Braxton hicks and just being like, oh, baby's low. I'm just like, okay, maybe we didn't know it was he. Maybe baby's going to come early. And I would not be mad about that. And nope, didn't come early. So we just hung on those last couple of weeks with lots of Braxton hicks and me being like, is this Braxton hicks? Are we turning into more consistent? And it never picked up. And so we just waited. Addie's birthday came in past. So then we were like, okay, they're not going to share a birthday. That's good. You know, no big deal. There's a lot of other birthdays in December on our family. And so everyone like joked like, oh, when's baby going to be born? Whose birthday? And Bo managed to fall in between all of the birthdays on his own day. We actually were supposed to be celebrating Christmas the day I went into labor. And I was really like, actually I was upset because I wanted to go to Christmas. And we're like, nope, we don't want to be an hour. My family's about an hour from the birth center. So my mom came and picked up our two girls and took them to Christmas. And Michael and I were like, what are we going to do with the day?
Now,
So,
take me back a little bit
mm-hmm.
because you have, I wanted to talk to you because you have like, I can't, it's hard for me to put my words together because your laboring process is so peaceful. And I know that there's a lot going on internally. So walk me through, like, when did you truly feel that shift of, okay, having Braxton Hicks, and to me, just communicating with you, it sounded like prodromal labor prior, where like, okay, when is it actually going to pick up? When is it actually going to pick up? So I mean, I would say I would categorize it as prodromal labor, but of course you know better than anyone what that is. And it may have been a mental strategy to call it Braxton Hicks, who knows? But when did you sort of feel that shift and know that okay, something is different now to send the girls?
Yeah, honestly, it was like the day, I want to say the night before. So I think it was the day before. I can't even remember for sure what day it was. It all kind of blurs together at the end. Um, I remember having contractions actually pretty consistently that night. It was like not that far apart, but they never really picked up in intensity. So I was like, oh, I'll just, time them here and there to just get a feel for where we're at, because at this point I was like, I'll take anything like to make me feel like we're closer. And I remember just like at that point, so much was going through my head about like, where are the kids going to go? What if we go into labor in the middle of the night? Like, like we had a plan. We were going to call Michael's parents, like all these things. But then it was like, it felt like too much mom on my mind, where I was like, I have to worry about that. What about this? Oh, I have to make sure they have this. We got to pack that. Like it was just too hard for me to be like, just focus on the contractions, just breathe through them, like whatever. And so I think that's partially why it never picked up. So we agreed, regardless of when baby was born, my mom would take the girls and they could go celebrate Christmas with the family, which I think was the best thing that could have happened. Because at this point, you're right, I might have kind of been in labor for, gosh, how long, right? Like, I felt like forever. Like, on and off, like, is this it? Is it it? Are we going to have baby today? And then the girls were gone. And my contractions started to pick up. Very inconsistent, but started again. And I was like, do I get my hopes up? Do I like believe this is it and just be like really bummed later? Or do I just kind of let it be? So I was like, I'm going to work on my Christmas puzzle. I'll text my doulas. I'll just kind of see how it goes. Well, they were so inconsistent. This was the weirdest thing, because this labor was not anything like the girls. Like the girls I knew, once labor started, I was like, this is it. We're having this baby. And with this one, I'm like, at this point, I was not sure. I wasn't sure. So since they were so inconsistent, I believe you recommended maybe trying a mild circuit. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch a Christmas movie and I'll do some of these positions like side lying. And I don't remember all of them. There's like 3, I think, right? There's 3 positions. I don't know. I just remember watching a Christmas movie and like laying and not timing my contractions at all. Just like relaxing, watching a movie, just laying in these positions. And it was like 4 p.m. when I like kind of finished them and was like, okay, I'm just going to watch this movie. And I was like, okay, my contractions are actually like really consistent at this point. When I started timing them, they weren't super, I'd say they kind of varied in their time apart. I can't remember exactly what it was like. It seemed like they never got long enough that I was like, oh, this is for sure it. They were only like 30 seconds long. So I was like, we're really early yet. We got lots of time. And I remember going out to the garage by my husband because he was, who knows what he was doing. And I was like, I think I might need you soon. And he's like, is it baby time? And I was like, not yet. Don't get all excited. He always jumps to like, we need to go. Like, this is it. Like, so I'm always like, just calm down. I just want you to like come in. Maybe we should eat together, like, let's just relax. But he was like, okay, I'm coming in. And he like came in, got ready. And then he's like, what do you want to eat? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really hungry. He's like, let me see your timer. Cause I was timing my contractions. He's like, babe, these are 5 minutes apart. We have to go.
I can see it now.
Yes. He gets very nervous about potentially not making it to the birth center, which I never once have been concerned that we would not make it to the birth center for any of my babies. But then he gets anxious, and then I'm like, just calm down. We don't need that energy. And I remember talking to you throughout all this, and you were like, well, I'm going to be at a Christmas party with my husband, I think it was. I don't mind leaving. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to leave and come here. And then my contractions stopped like they've had in the past. And so I was like, no, it's okay. And you're like, really? I don't mind. I don't mind at all, And I remember
Really,
you being like,
let me get out of this party.
you're like, well, I know, because you knew you were pregnant. And so you're like, I don't mind changing into comfy clothes and just hanging out. And so I'm like, fine. If you don't mind coming here, because it is a little bit of a drive, you can come hang out with us. I remember the midwife too, when she checked in on me because it was a long weekend of, are we going to have this baby or not? And she checked in on me and she's like, well, if you think Jamie's just going to come and like stare at you and like make you uncomfortable, like just tell her not to come. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't think Jamie will. It'll be okay. And I think the biggest change would be like when I finally was like, okay, this might actually like be labor. And I said, Jamie could come over. Like once I knew you were coming, regardless of what was happening, I feel like my body was like, we have everything we need at this point. Like the girls are gone. Michael's home here with me. Jamie's on her way. Katie's at the birth center if we need her. Like everything was just ready. So I think then my body was like relaxed enough that I'm like, okay, like we can have this baby tonight. So I decided you really recommended I eat as well. And I knew I should eat because I didn't have much of an appetite, but I'm like, if I have to have this baby, we got to have some energy. So I remember Michael and I had some dinner. You showed up, I think, while we were eating yet, watching some TV, just trying to kind of time my contractions on and off. I'm not the best at it, but I just try to like keep a rough estimate, but they were still only like 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds long. They never got like long. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm not convinced. This doesn't follow like what it should be, like the 1 minute long, how many minutes apart, I was like, gosh, I'm not convinced yet.
And you guys, okay, so I told myself that I was going to interject as little as possible because it's your story to tell, Brittany. I do just need to say this. When I walked in, this is the scene. You and Michael are eating. You cannot tell that anything is happening at all. Like nothing is happening. I'm like, okay. I know. And like, if you would have been new to me, like if I would not have known the history of how you went into labor before or like just how you handle yourself, I would have been like, nope, absolutely not. It's way too early. I'm leaving. Like it's not like Katie said, like you don't want to just show up and be, staring at a couple awkwardly while they are completely fine, and you were completely fine. You were great, but you knew to say yes to me coming. And so I just wanted to paint the picture of like, you guys were totally, and like, of course we had the back and forth with Michael and we were talking to him and all of that. And trying to make sure that he was as comfortable as possible too. And yeah, just super peaceful. And so we just sat and chatted.
Yes, we just chatted a little. The TV was on. I feel like all my births, you're right. That's just kind of how I labor. It's just very quiet, just a lot. It's probably running in through my head at this point, but I at this point, I can't even tell you what goes through my mind while we're going through some of this, but I just remember being like at peace, like comfortable. I was in my house, my husband, my doula, which by this point we had a great relationship. Like, I was good. And like I said, Katie was on call, and that was perfect because honestly, like, that's who I was banking on, hopefully being on call this time. And I remember eating and just being like, oh, like once in a while I would get a contraction that was a bit more. And I just kind of breathed through them. And I remember we called Katie to give her an update, the midwife, Katie, and she's like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to finish up whatever she was doing with her family. I'll head to the birth center and get things ready. No hurry, but if you guys decide, like, you need to come, great. Like, it'll be ready for you. We're like, okay. So I remember, like, walking to the bathroom in between eating at some point, and I had, like, one really big contraction, and I was like, I think it's a good thing we called Katie. And then I came back from the bathroom and I brought my comb with me. And I just remember Michael being like, oh boy, like, this is happening, because he gets really nervous, but he knows my birth comb is like my go-to coping mechanism. So he was anxious at this point. And then I had this thought, I think we need to meet Katie at the birth center sooner than we originally, like, potentially talked about. So I think we texted her and was like, or called her, and she said, I can be there in 20 minutes or half hour or something like that. And I'm like, perfect. By the time we load up and drive there, it'll take us about the same amount of time. So we'll meet you there. Because I was just like, something told me, like, okay, I think we actually need to go. And so we got all ready. I remember you freaked Michael out because you're like, do you have some extra towels to bring in the car? And he was like, what are we going to need a towel for? And we're like, just in case. You're like, just in case her water breaks, then it doesn't get all over the seat. Because I know he was like, this baby is not going to be born in the car. And I was not worried. I was like, yes, we need to go. But I did not think baby was going to, like, show up on the side of the road. So we were good. We got in the car. I know you put the TENS unit on me as well, just for the drive, to try to help with contractions. We continued to kind of time them. I don't think I was using my app at this point. I think Michael was just kind of keeping a rough tally on how we're doing and how fast he should drive. I also vividly remember being like, I remember you saying, if you need anything at all, just pull over and I'll pull over behind you. And I know that Michael was like, we are going to make it there before I pull over. But
so it sounds weird, right? Because I showed up and you guys were like totally fine. Now, and this is a short period of time from the time, I mean, me getting there to leaving for the birth center. It's like a really short period of time. I don't remember exactly, but like an hour or two, maybe.
I'd guess maybe an hour. Yeah.
I mean, you coming back from the bathroom with that comb, you guys, and again, I'm doing a terrible job of not interjecting here, but the reason, like when you said, okay, I think we might need to go sooner rather than later, or when you thought that in your head, the signal to me, the cue to me in watching your body was you let out a moderate sigh. Like literally just, I'm like, oh, okay, it's time to go to the birth center. And then the only other thing that I'll interject and mention, and the reason I made the comment about the towel and about the pulling over is because you started getting shaky in the garage before you got in the vehicle. I'm like, oh, we're at a good clip here. So, and always as doulas, we try to be as calm and just calm and matter of fact. And yep, let's go. Uh,
Yeah, and you didn't freak out. I mean, you were like, just in case her water breaks. And he's like, oh, okay. Because I know in his head, he was like, Jamie thinks this baby is going to come in the car.
oh,
Like,
poor Michael.
oh. And just for a little more background, we got to the birth center with Marley. The only time I get checked is usually when I'm in labor at the birth center, when I just kind of need like a little more like, how far are you? Because I feel like labor, I always tell people, is like a marathon. You just need to know, like, if you can make it a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. So to me, when I get checked just to see how far along we are, it's just a little bit of like usually it's a little bit of a boost. Like, you're almost there. Like, you're so close at this point. So when we got to the birth center with Marley, I was, I believe, 8 centimeters dilated. When we got to the birth center with Addie, I believe I was also 8 centimeters dilated. So just for a little insight, like, we were all like, this labor could be very fast. And chances are I am also very dilated because I've been in labor for, honestly, who knows how long. So my husband was very concerned that I was going to push it too far this time. Like I said, I was not worried. So on the way there, I hate the car ride. I guess that's probably the worst part about transferring and laboring so long at home, is like the contractions are so intense. You have to stay sitting. I love counter pressure for most of my labors. So nobody's there to squeeze my hips, because usually you do that, Jamie. And there I am sitting next to Michael, just uncomfortable. I just usually close my eyes and like I'm talking to myself the whole time about, I can do it. We're almost there. I'll be able to get up and stand up and be more comfortable in a couple minutes. And Michael just kind of watches how often he sees me having a contraction to gauge if he's doing a good pace. I don't even know how fast he was driving, Jamie. You were following us, but he always doesn't worry to get there. But we got there. We got there, got out of the car. I just remember, like, thank goodness I can stand up. And then I remember the little pieces I can remember. I remember, like, we couldn't get in. I don't know. We didn't have the door code or something. We're like waiting for Katie to let us in. Made it to the birth room. So happy to be at the birth center. Like, I just remember being so happy that we were there. I was like, this baby's coming. I can't wait to meet this baby. I am so happy that I don't have to be pregnant anymore. I'm like, all my favorite people are surrounding me. I love the birth center. It's so peaceful. I had the same birth room as I had with Addie. So it was like all the things. Like, I was just like, I remember being so happy to be at the birth center. They get everything set up. They started running the water in the tub, because I did say that I would be open to having a water birth, because I had 3, this would be my 3rd birth center baby, and I never had a water birth. So I was like, maybe this is the one, So I was like, let's go for it, And then I remember I did have Katie check me. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I was 9 centimeters dilated. And Katie said, if you ever feel the need to push, just go for it. And I remember Michael, I feel like, was about to lose his mind. Like, he was like, you get us here so close every time. Why do you do this? He gets so like worked up about it. But honestly, I don't get worried. And I know my body, but I'm like, part of me is like the transition to getting there, like the car ride, like knowing we're closer. I think then once we're there, like my body's like all we need is this baby and you're good to go. So like, let's make it happen. So like I said, I was never worried. My husband gets so worried about this. It's so funny. So
Hey,
yeah,
Brittany,
yeah.
can I ask you, could you hold your the the cord. Yeah, it was just rubbing on like your
Oh,
collar.
sorry.
I just want to
Um,
be able to hear you totally well. I'm sorry to take you out of your groove, but
no,
okay,
you're
so
good.
we get there. You're 9 centimeters. Michael loses his mind. And then what?
And then I did get in the tub. I was like, I believe I labored for a while, got in the tub, labored for a while in the tub. And I remember being in the tub and being like, gosh, I feel like more should be happening. Cause I don't know if it's just like how the water, it was very relaxing. Um, Looking back, I believe I was just in transition waiting for baby to come down, really, right? But I was like, my contractions don't seem super close together. I don't feel like they're that crazy intense. And I just remember being like I want this baby to come, right? I was like, why are we sitting here so long? And I remember talking to Katie a couple of times and just feeling like, she's like, your body's gonna do its thing. Your baby's gonna come. We just need to just be patient. Well, eventually, like I start to lose my patience, which I'm sure everyone does. And I just remember being like, we need to help this along a little bit because I just feel like we need to keep this moving because I was like losing stamina and I was feeling a little defeated that it wasn't, baby wasn't coming and it didn't seem like I was going to have a water birth. I was like, gosh, I just feel like not enough is happening. Like I was expecting this to go fast. And so I had to try to get out of my head, like, it's okay if this one's not faster than the other ones. It's okay if you have to wait a little longer. But I was just like, in my head at that time, I was like, gosh, this is taking so much out of me. And I did talk to Katie. I remember having a little powwow with her on the side of the tub. And I'm like, Katie, what's my options? Like, I really, I need to know what my options are. And she's like, well, we can just wait it out. You can either sit in the tub because you seem like you're enjoying the tub. You can come out of the tub, try some different positions. And she said, and if you want, we could break your water. And I was like, that's it. We're going to do that because for Addie, we ended up breaking my water too. And then baby, she came right away. So I was like, yep, that's what we need. That's the one. That's the option I need. So we got out, takes a while to get moving and situated. We made it to the bed and just got comfortable-ish again, And I remember she broke my water. And those few minutes, I don't even know how long they take in my mind, but when they break my water, it's like my body's instantly like, that baby was right there. We were ready. A couple pushes later, honestly, in my memory, we had babies head out, and another push or two later, we got to catch Bo. So, so cool. It's so empowering. I just remember thinking to myself, though, a little bit during this process that this baby is a little bit harder to push out than Addie was because I was in the same position, same thing. They broke my water and then pushing on hands and knees. And I just remember thinking, gosh, this one's a little harder to push out, but we're getting there. And it didn't take long in the grand scheme of things, but it was definitely a little bit harder. And then I remember holding that sweet boy. Oh my gosh. He was huge. You forget how little they are, but at the same time, I was like, you are a big boy. Like I said, we didn't know for sure that it was a boy or girl. Honestly, Michael and I were both okay with another girl. We kind of thought it was. And somewhere in the process of all this excitement, I remember we held him up to see, and it was a boy. And then I remember he peed directly on Michael. So Michael got his little boy he wanted and got peed on him all at the same time. So little bit of humor that um, happens in the room is great. I can remember Katie's face, like she was holding him and just being like, "This is probably the biggest baby I ever held," she said. And I was like, "Yeah, this is a big baby." And so many like he was so rolly, and he had a lot of hair. He had blonde hair, which was it's so fun to see when they have dark hair, light hair, no hair, whatever. Um, so yeah, just our first impressions were, it's a boy. He's huge, and he had a lot of hair. Those are what I remember, the first impressions of birth. And he peed on my husband, which is probably well deserved. I'm missing like so many details that come back to you when you like think through your birth again. I remember just like I didn't puke as much this time, but Jamie's always, bless her, the puke catcher, which we all appreciate because we know my husband can't handle that. But in those last couple like moments from the tub to get on the bed, her breaking my water, it goes so fast in your mind, really. Like it's hard to separate like the timeline and how many minutes it actually was.
It was quick in minutes too. I remember telling the photographer, like who is also a student midwife, like she, like based on last time, I remember kind of whispering to her, like, get your camera ready because this went really quickly last time. And you remember perfectly. It was just a couple contractions and he was out after that.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it's you. Someone recorded Bo's birth this time, which I highly recommend. I did not think I'd want to watch that. I don't know. Just I didn't think I'd want to like rewatch it because I'm like, oh, whatever. But honestly, I cry every time I watch it. It is amazing. Yeah, just really empowering. It was so great to be surrounded by those, you and Katie, and we had a student midwife and a photographer, and you can't even tell all those people are there. There might have been more, who knows, right? And I just felt so comfortable. And so I have some really great pictures of both Addie's birth with you and Bo's birth. Just those first couple of moments after like holding that sweet new baby, and you're by my side cheering me on, and Michael's always in tears. It's so funny. You would not think he'd be crying, but he's like the biggest mush when it comes to birth now. Like he can't not cry. But what else? I'm just trying to think.
Oh, that's great. It's absolutely beautiful. And take a little while to see if there's anything else, because it's good to get it out. And we've processed this. This is not a birth like processing session at all. But it's good to reflect on it after a year.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, one, that it was a year ago. Time flies that first year. I'm just thinking back, there's so many like little things that come back to you and you're like, oh, I remember this part when we were, I was in labor. I just remember being very, very happy I was not pregnant anymore because I was so uncomfortable. So I was like, what a relief, and I remember them laying him down, and we're like, I just so big, and we joked around and we called him Tank, and we all guessed his weight, and I don't believe any of us guessed a 10-pound baby. And Katie weighed him and it came back as 10 pounds, 3 ounces. And I think we all of our jaws, I think were like, what? Which makes me think back to probably my last appointment with Katie before I actually went into labor. She asked me, do you have any concerns or any questions? And I was like, is this baby ever going to come out? And when it does, how big is it going to be? Because like you preferenced earlier, I have big babies. So this one hanging out longer, I'm like, there's no way this baby's small, but I did not think we'd have a 10-pound baby. So Bo did not fit in the newborn diapers they provided because he was so big. He went right to size 1. And I remember having more than one outfit for him. And one of them was a newborn. Even though my kids are big, like I just love how they look actually fitted and not drowning in their clothes. So I did buy a newborn outfit, and we didn't even put him on it because he was 22 inches long, I believe. And I was like, he's not even going to fit. It's going to be so stretched on his little poor toes. So we didn't put him in a newborn outfit. He went right to 0 to 3. And we did not have a name for Bo. Since we didn't know for sure the gender, we always go into birth with a couple girl names and a couple boy names on our list, which most of the time are names I like, and I haven't fully convinced my husband to be on board with yet, because we usually don't agree. So we had some girl names picked out. None that we were like both set on, but enough girl names that I was like, once I see that baby, I'll be able to convince Michael what girl name we're going to take, right? And then it was a boy, and I was like, we don't have a name for him. So I remember the first night when we were sitting at the birth center, because we stayed, because it was probably, I think Bo was born like 11:30. I don't know the exact time offhand. I have a bad memory for exact times, but it was later. So we're like, well, let's just stay, because by the time I get all cleaned up and situated, I'm like, to go home seems like a lot of work at this point. So we're like, we'll just stay at least for a couple hours, rest, and then when we feel up to it, we'll leave. So I just remember those couple hours, we're like resting, and in between resting, we're like, what about this name? What about this name? How do you feel about this name? And we could not come to an agreement. We kept calling him Tank because he was a big boy. And that nickname really hasn't stuck with him now, but we were home. We brought Bo home before he had a name. And I remember the girls met him, and Michael had one name he liked. He liked Bo. And I had a name I was leaning toward, and neither of us could agree. So my husband was like, girls, do you think we should name him this or this? And Addie, who at the time only said a handful of actual words, was like, Bo, because of course she could say that one. So Michael's like, see, it's sold. She can say it, like that's his name. And so it took a little more persuading, and I was like, you know what? He is so set on this name. Bo it is. Like, that's it. It's Bo. And now I'm like, yes, it was Bo. I don't know why I couldn't grasp that and let it be easier in the beginning. But we ended up with a Bo Michael. So
Amazing. Oh, you are such an inspirational woman and such a powerful woman, and seeing you go through that process in person was absolutely incredible. I do need to ask you the question that's probably on our listeners' minds, which is, immediately after he came out, how were your tissues? So any tearing? Were you all good there?
no tearing with Bo. I had them checked because I was like sure I didn't tear. And she's like, no, you look great. So everyone will ask how I pushed out such a big baby. But honestly, like I said, it seemed a little bit harder to push him out than Addie, who was over a full pound lighter than him. But at no point did I ever like second guess that my body could do it. You know, I think that's so important. I prepped a lot, like mentally, and just like reading about births, listening or reading about birth stories before my kids. And I just remember, I don't know the exact statistic about you growing a baby you can't birth is so low. So no part of me was like, I don't think I'll be able to have this baby because it's too big. I just was like, how hard am I going to have to work? But I think just having all the right people and just being so ready to meet the baby, that I was like, we got this, no problem. And we did it. And it was amazing.
Amen. It was amazing. And everybody in the room agrees.
Yeah, it just, I'm sure being a midwife and seeing births all the time never gets old, but gosh, like your own kids' births are just so amazing. I don't have the right words to describe how amazing birth can be. But my husband will always ask me shortly after I pushed out one of our children if I would do it again. And I don't know what he expects me to say, but I always tell him I would absolutely do that again. Just not right now because I'm pretty tired. He's
That is great.
like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, that wasn't bad at all. And so like, I don't know. That's just how we're programmed maybe, but I would do all my births over. Like I would relive them over and over. Like they were amazing, you know? So I'm like, I just need a little rest between because it was exhausting, but so special, really so special. And I'm so happy I had the birth center. I'm so happy I had photos for all my babies. Photos you didn't think you might even want, right? But they are to look back and like see yourself in that moment and those first couple of minutes when you like meet your baby, to be able to see that from an outside view just is something so amazing. You don't have to share them with anybody. Just, I love them. I loved having my birth photos, and the video of Bo being born is just something else too. So
And that video, are you okay with me sharing like where those things are posted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there are some of Brittany's birth photos and the video posted on Instagram on Alba Birth Center. It's at ALBA Birth Center. And then yesterday, in honor of Bo's birthday, I also posted the beautiful video that was taken there of him and you and Michael. So if anybody wants to check those out, go to Alba Birth Center or triumphant_birth to see the video and to see what's possible. And then of course you also have in your possession all of the iPhone videos and pictures and all of that. So
yeah.
now, before I let you go, I do want to touch on your postpartum time a little bit. How was that for you? I just never ever want to leave that out of an experience because it is super important to everyone's, integration of the whole experience.
Yeah. I was a little nervous going from 2 kids to 3. But honestly, it was so great. Marley was 3 at the time when Bo was born, if I'm doing the math right. And she loved to snuggle him. She would hold him on her chest and just shush him and pat his little back and stuff. So it was so sweet to see them interacting. Addie didn't understand it as much, didn't really care as much. But just seeing Marley with Bo was really nice to be able to like, okay, like they love their brother. Addie loves him way more now that he's mobile. But that was really special. Honestly, like I had a great support at home. My husband was home more. He kind of takes a little bit of time off of work to be more around. So that's helpful. Having people feed you is also amazing because I didn't feel like cooking. So it's nice to just have people feed you. I feel like overall it was easier than I thought it would be this time around. My healing was so great. I felt good from day one, right? Like I come home and besides being tired, I feel like I felt so good that also helps. But you also have to remember to not do too much because it's really easy with 2 toddlers to be a little more active than you would be if you just had one little snuggle baby on your chest. So I did a lot of intentional, my husband will help the girls and I'm going to sit in the chair in the living room so I can be part of the events, part of seeing them play and stuff. I can sit here with Bo just snuggled on me. What else? Anything else you could
Did you
think of?
get to attend a Christmas event? Because you missed the Christmas when you were in labor. Did you get to attend something for that?
We did take Bo to another family Christmas.
Yeah.
We went out. We didn't stay obviously super long or anything, but we did get out of the house. We get to see some more family, and we did a little bit with our Christmas baby. But honestly, Christmas at home with a newborn is so special in itself that you don't really need to get out too much. So we enjoyed being home as a family for most of the Christmas, but we did get out, see people, or we would take rides and take the girls to see Christmas lights. So a lot of our outings were just in the car, but we did get to celebrate Christmas yet,
Amazing. Oh, Brittany, I love you.
I love you. I wish I was there by you so I could give you a big hug.
Soon. We'll have to plan something soon. Um, Thank you so much for spending time with me today. You are such an inspiration for what is possible. Um, I posted Bo's birth video, and in the caption, I was writing a little bit about the fact that I was pregnant with twins at that birth. And like I said, I didn't know it was twins, but just knowing that, I was big. And I'm like, if this woman can birth a baby that's 10 pounds and 3 ounces, not tear, and handle labor in such a way that I didn't even know was possible. I mean, I had seen you birth Addie before, and that was very, very similar. But there was just something inside me that said, pay attention to what's happening here. And I'm so happy that I did that. And again, everybody has a different experience. And for our listeners, I want them to hear that it's okay if you are vocal. It's okay if you have a harder time. It doesn't matter actually what it looks like on the outside, but knowing what's possible holds a lot of power. And so I want to thank you for being you and giving us all some of your time today and for sharing your beautiful family with me and with our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so, like I said, it's so hard to recall some of these events that happen in labor and the order of them that it's just, it's fun to put the pieces back together and just reminisce on some of the highlights of labor. But yeah, labor, it's not always easy. Like I said, I always tell myself it's a marathon, and I just tell myself one more contraction, or you're getting so much closer. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it.
Beautiful advice. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
I hope everyone listening has a beautiful Christmas and New Year's and holiday season. And I am going to be back next year, bigger and better, with a few changes that we'll look for in the middle of January. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this podcasting journey that's been new for the last few months. And I will see you in the new year.